It's a skill. You gotta be good at it. I mean, it's something I've always been good at my whole life. I'm always alert to when we're in the bonus, when to try to be a little more aggressive than usual. I've been pretty good at it since I've been in the NBA. It was all right. I couldn't buy a basket other than a free throw, but we won the game, so I was happy with that. It was fun to get the first game out the way.
Yeah, he's really shifty in the lane. We talked about it the other day. He has the ability to play in small areas, but also take long strides. He has the ability to explode up, but his shiftiness creates contact and gets him there, and it's big. I mean, the fact of the matter is we need to be able to get to the line, and his ability to not only get there, but also just create in the paint for our team is really important. So we're 3 games in, so we'll see how it continues to play out. But he's been good.
We're back. The Celtics, they win 115-94. This is the Garden Report, powered by lynda.com on CLNS Radio and Celtics Blog. Welcome to the Garden Report. I am Jared Weiss. We are finally back here at the Garden on the Parquet floor. Hi, Jimmy. Hi, Julian.
Hi, guys.
I know these guys. They are my co-hosts. We're going to talk about the Celtics tonight. We first want to introduce our newest sponsor, Peak Organic Brewing. Delicious organic beer.
But where are they?
There's a reason why we don't have them with us right now, is we're in the Garden. But we go to your local store, buy some Peak Organic Brewing. I'm sure you can order this stuff online. But they are, if you want beer and you want to be responsible and you don't want to die of chemical poisoning from Bud Light or whoever else has it, 10 years from now, drink some Peak Organic Brewing as this guy walks behind our set. So let's talk about...
I want to drink beer, but I don't want to be responsible. But I still will drink responsible beer.
Okay, well, before we send confusing messages, do not drink and drive, call a cab or an Uber. So,
well, yeah.
Now that you're still alive watching the show...
Can still be irresponsible in the back of a cab or Uber.
So the Celtics, they win pretty spectacular fashion. They beat Phoenix, then they come back here and they beat the Knicks. Ever since they got Isaiah Thomas, they're obviously a completely different team. We're going to just talk a lot about the new players on this team, focusing on Isaiah Thomas here to start it. So he had 19 points tonight. He went 11 for 11 from the line. Celtics so rarely in the last couple of years have had a guy that can get to the line 10 times. This guy's averaging, I think, 8.3 attempts per game at the line the 3 games he's played for the Celtics. I mean, Jimmy, Isaiah Thomas has been pretty much exactly what they thought they were going to be getting.
I think he's been better. I mean, I think...
Really?
Well, I think to the average fan, he has to be better than what they thought about him. I mean, from what I've seen so far, I don't think he can keep up some of the things that he's been doing. I mean, obviously he got the line 11 times tonight. You can't expect that. But to expand upon your point, I mean, he's already taken more free throws in the 3 games with the Celtics than Rondo took in the 25.
That's such a ridiculous...
Or whatever it was, 22 or 25 points that he had.
And he hasn't gotten suspended yet either.
Right, and he hasn't gotten kicked out of a game, but he hasn't been suspended.
That's true.
It just tells you the type of player he is. He's aggressive. He's thinking score first. You know, he's not thinking pass. You know, Rondo would drive, if the rare opportunity happened where Rondo did drive to the hoop, he would pass it in the end. He wouldn't get fouled. This guy is thinking, get me to the hoop, get me fouled, I don't care. He had a rough shooting night tonight. Was it 3 for 10?
Yep.
Yes, 3 for 10. But when you go 11 for 11 from the line, you can afford to shoot like that.
That's such a big part of his game, the fact that, you know, a lot of the players on this Celtic team, if they shoot 3 for 10, they're having a bad game. That's a foregone conclusion. A guy like Isaiah Thomas, 5'9", maybe, is able to get to the line 11 times. That's huge for this Celtics team, that he can be that kind of difference maker that they didn't have. And I do agree with Jimmy. I think he's been better than advertised since he's been a Celtic. You know, if he wasn't ejected from that Laker game and they had him down the stretch, we could be talking about a 3-0 Isaiah Thomas-led Celtics team. So just the versatility that he brings, like you were talking about, Rondo driving. You know, Isaiah Thomas, he hits his threes, he can get to the line, and he can pass. Now when he's in the lane, you really have a defense on its toes as compared to, okay, let's sag off Rondo and just see where he's going to go with it. Isaiah Thomas has been a huge difference maker so far.
And, you know, they were able to put a lineup out there tonight where pretty much everybody was an offensive option. And the way that Rondo was playing tonight, that wasn't really always the case. And that's something that the Celtics don't want to be anymore. That really every team in the league doesn't want to be anymore. They don't want to have lineups where there's a weak link in the offense, or there's a guy that the team can basically the defense can sag off of. And that was such a huge issue with Rondo. Even when Rondo was at the peak of his game, they were still sagging off of him. With Isaiah Thomas, they could sag all they want off of him. He's still going to carve the team. He's still going to carve the defense up and get to the lane. We saw it especially in that Phoenix game. Of course, he was playing with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder.
Just a bit, yeah.
He was showing to the bench as much as humanly possible for the Phoenix Suns. But I mean, just you're seeing that they're able to run pick and roll, which they basically haven't been doing at all under Brad Stevens, and they are really starting to look more like a real, well-rounded NBA team. Obviously, they have a long way to get until they can be that kind of team, but Isaiah Thomas looks like he's going to be a very key component to them being that kind of team.
And without practice, as Brad Stevens said, they haven't had a single practice yet, but they're playing like simple basketball to an extent. They're not getting too complicated with the play calls. But yeah, the pick and roll has been something that was basically non-existent. It's been awful, but now, and we haven't even seen a whole lot of it with Zeller. When Thomas and Zeller get going, that's going to be even better. And that's going to be what they'll work on in practice. You know, maybe whether it's tomorrow or whenever that next practice is. But yeah, Thomas, and he opens the floor for guys like Crowder. Crowder's been getting some open shots that he wouldn't be getting if it was a guy like Rondo, or if it was even just Smart out there. You wouldn't focus as much on a guy like Smart as you would with Thomas. And Crowder hit a couple big threes tonight, just went with Thomas out on the court. So when Thomas isn't shooting well, he's still allowing the team to play better with him out on the court. I don't know his plus and minus tonight. I should, but I don't. But I'm sure it was great because that fourth quarter there, obviously, when the Celtics went off, he was he was out there on the court and he was a huge part of that. But just in general, I want to go real quick, just back to the trade. What a great trade that was. I mean, you're giving up a late first rounder and a guy who had no future at the Celtics, Marcus Thornton, for somebody who you can see being either being a big part of this team going forward in the next few years, or B, being a trade chip if Danny Ainge wants to go that route because his contract is small.
He's on such a great deal that if it doesn't work out,
he's making under $20 million for the next 3 seasons. Rondo, if you had re-signed him, would have made that in 1 year. Yeah. So I mean, that's just such a great deal.
It was a great trade, and to go even further with it, it ended up being that Danny Ainge and Mike Zarin turned that trade exception that they used over the summer because they got Tyler Zeller, Thornton, and that first-round pick. They essentially just traded that trade exception, or turned that trade exception into Zeller and Isaiah Thomas.
It's crazy.
Which you couldn't have done any better of a job with that.
And we saw Danny Ainge's his methods go from kind of going towards the corner to finally turning the corner with this one.
That was
Because
the first sign.
Start buying.
I mean, the
Start
piling
buying.
of draft picks, the piling of trade exceptions, they were finally able to get a really good player on the cheap. I mean, I think I can't emphasize enough the fact that they gave up the worst first-round pick that they own. All the first-round picks they own, we're talking about the Cavs next year after they've got another offseason to figure this team out.
Definitely.
That's probably one of the last picks in the draft. And I mean, they got a guy that really fills their short-term needs and their long-term needs really at the top of their list. They get a dynamic ball handler. The first guy that's been a real good dynamic scorer they've had in a long time here. I mean, Paul Pierce, sure, but towards the end there, Paul Pierce wasn't quite as dynamic as he used to be. This is the first explosive, dynamic, consistent playmaker that they've had here, cough, Jeff Green. I mean, it's exciting to watch. They're a different team. 2
things. One, and I'm not saying anybody who listens to our show or watches the show falls in this category, but I think there were a lot of fans who maybe came on with KG and Ray, and the only good point guard they've ever seen is Rajon Rondo, and I think that has a lot to do with fans loving Rondo, which is fine. You can love Rondo, but I think that they also overvalue him because they've never had another great point guard or good point guard on their team that they've been cheering for. So now they get a chance with this guy, Isaiah Thomas, who is a different type of player than Rondo, and I think he's gonna really wow some fans with the way he scores and some of the things he does, some of the plays he makes, and just his aggressiveness. And the one thing that really stood out to me after that Suns game, when he just went off in that fourth quarter, was him saying after the game, like, I want to be that guy. And nobody on the Celtics wanted to be that guy. Jeff Green didn't want to be that guy. Jared Sullinger even said he didn't want to be that guy. Once Paul Pierce left, they didn't have that guy. And now they do, because to have that type of player on your team, it's a trickle-down effect when you have a guy who's confident in late game situations and wants the ball. I think teammates can sort of rally around that and they can play to their strengths at that same time.
Yeah, those are awesome points, Jimmy. And the beautiful part about it is that, ideally the Celtics are going to buy more pieces, whether it be pieces that they draft or pieces that they trade for or go out and straight out sign in free agency. So once this team builds itself, Isaiah Thomas is going to want to be that guy, and, you know, he's going to be your second or third option. And, you know, that's when it really gets going, that you have multiple players that take that mindset. Obviously, they had 0 of them before. Now they made a pretty good trade to get one of those guys on the cheap. So, you know, it's a great start towards the direction that the Celtics want to go in.
Right. It's not the blockbuster. It's not the superstar
The KG
player.
trade is a once-in-a-generation trade.
But you can't. Yeah, exactly.
You know, this is just a slow way. That's not going to happen again.
They can, but the thing is, they can still do that. They can still sign the max contract for agent. They could probably even still sign
Right.
2.
They have
This is
plenty of
just a
room.
guy that you need. You need depth. You need, and before the trade deadline, Danny Ainge said that morning, like, we like our guards, we like Avery, we like Marcus, but we need depth. We need scoring. And he went and he killed 2 birds with one stone with that one trade. And those are the types of moves that build, a championship team.
And like we talked about with Thomas's contract being a potential asset for other teams down the line, if for some reason
Right.
they don't need Thomas in the future, don't want Thomas in the future, that makes this kind of a win-win. You can't lose this
Right.
trade, I feel like.
You know, the thing is, Isaiah Thomas is a great 6 man. He's not really. He's not.
Imagine if he were your 8th man.
Oh my God, I'd be going crazy. But you know, he's not. He's probably not going to be a starter in this league because of his lack of size on defense.
I don't know.
And
I wouldn't
he
say
could
that.
certainly overcompensate and make up for that. But if he's your 6th man, you're a championship contender.
Why does it
team.
matter? What does it matter at the time of the game he goes in? I mean, he goes in, he plays 30 minutes. He's proved he can play in the NBA, whether or not he starts or not. I like him coming off the bench right now. I don't mind. I mean, because the bench could use that little boost. He can play with everybody on the team. I think that's kind of one of the reasons why they traded for him, because Danny Ainge probably figured that he can slide him into that rotation with Bradley and Smart.
Thomas said that before
Yeah.
the game, actually. He said he doesn't mind who he's playing with, when he's playing with them off the bench starter. Just
As long
put
as
him,
he's
put him in the
getting-
game and let him go, and that's what he's been
He should be
doing.
getting 30-plus minutes every game, whether or not he's starting or not.
He should, and he's only played 27
Right.
each game in the last 2 games, and I think 25, although he got tossed out of that first game. He should
Once-
be playing more than 27 minutes.
Definitely, and I think once they get more acclimated with just each other and Stevens gets him kind of in maybe some more sets,
Right.
he'll be able to play him longer.
Well, he's averaging 20 a game. He's been here for 3 games. He's averaging
Yeah.
20 a game. Small sample size theater, but
Averaged 20 a game
that's
last
what we're
year.
expecting from him. Yep. So when we come back, we'll talk about the other moves they made, and we'll talk about how the backcourt is looking now once we've had Thomas to the fold. This is the Garden Report, brought to you by Lynda.com and now Peak Organic Brewing on CLNS
Yeah.
Radio and Celtics Blog.
Boston. It's cold. They got good seafood, kind of like Seattle. I went to prep school in Connecticut, so I was around here a little bit, driving through here, going to schools and playing against other schools. But I just know it's cold. It's cold. The fans are great, though. I like today. That was amazing.